These are turn-based RPGs, and they're awesome. And in this video, I'll be sharing what I think are the 10 best modern turn-based RPGs. And as a bonus 11th entry, we have the sponsor of today's video, Honkai Star Rail. Honkai Star Rail is a sci-fi turn-based RPG from the team at Hoyoverse who brought us Genshin Impact. In this new spacefaring RPG, you'll travel across the stars aboard the Astral Express, discovering fantastical new worlds and uncovering the secrets of the universe. Throughout the game, you'll grow a team of characters with their own unique abilities to utilize in the game's dynamic strategic combat system. Some of my favorites so far include the scythe-toting Zila, Serval who fights with a guitar, and my personal favorite, the bow-wielding March 7th. Yes, that's actually her name. Once again, the character designers are working overtime at Hoyoverse, with the characters revealed so far not only looking super cool, but also really fun to play. And two of my favorite things about the game, it's free to play and cross-play. So whether you want to go on a binge session on your PC or just knock out a few battles on the go on your iOS or Android device, you can keep the action going wherever you are. The game is currently in a closed beta with the full release coming soon, so be sure to check out the link in the description to sign up for the closed beta today. So starting this list off, we have Yakuza Like a Dragon. Now, I remember when this game came out and it was almost teased like it was gonna change to a turn-based combat system, and it was on April Fool's. People didn't believe it, but it ended up becoming true. It ended up being really good. So in the game, you play as Ichiban, and he just wants to be a hero. He wants to be like his favorite characters in Dragon Quest, and he even mentions it by name multiple times throughout the story. And what I love is that the characters in the game have classes, but it's not typical ones like, a mage or a wizard or anything like that. It's characters in this world. So like you'll have enemies that are like spitting out fire at you using booze and stuff like that. I think one of the characters in your party is a homeless man, and Bum is his class. So it's just really fun to see all these different creative ways they use classes in the game. Not to mention, I like how seamlessly they blend the turn-based combat system into the world itself. You don't really swirl around into a battle arena. You'll just jump in and you'll hop in. And again, the combat is really good. But I think what really makes this game special is all the different mini games around town, especially that can collecting game. I love that. So if you want a game with a really compelling story with a super cool, unique character, great world to walk around, and some really silly humor, definitely check out Yakuza Like a Dragon. Now, I talked about Fuga Melodies of Steel a lot in my 2021 videos, especially for my favorite games and for my Hidden Gems video, and for good reason. This is one of the most unique, really cool games I've ever played. Essentially, it's children animals driving this big, hefty tank, and they're trying to save their family. It's a really weird juxtaposition from like these cutesy characters and then just fighting back and killing characters as you fight in this tank. It's really wild. But I think what makes this game really awesome is the loop. There's always a bunch of different things that you can do, whether it be going from a story moment to then exploring around in your tank and talking to the different characters in your base, which is essentially your tank. There's even dungeon crawling segments, and of course the awesome turn-based combat. So the way the combat works is it's sort of like a little path system where you can choose different paths, and there will be either enemies or ways to replenish your tank depending on where you go. And in battle, you have to choose different attacks. It's kind of like a rock, paper, scissors system where you have to choose different attacks for the enemies that are weak against those attacks. So it requires a lot of strategy. It's really fun and super compelling. I had such a great time with the original one, and I love that we're getting a sequel. So if you haven't already, make sure you check out the first one because we're getting the sequel sometime later this year. Now, if Fantasian was a console game, I feel like way more people would be talking about it. Unfortunately, however, it was stranded on Apple Arcade, so I feel like it gets buried and not nearly as many people talk about it as should be. So this comes from Mistwalker, the team that brought us Lost Odyssey and The Last Story, and also the team behind it includes Hironobu Sakaguchi and Nobu Uematsu, some of the original minds behind Final Fantasy. And if this really was Nobu Uematsu's final game to compose for, man, did he go out on a banger, because the music in this game is just fantastic. I think the real standout point for this game, though, is its diorama-esque environments. Apparently, they actually made real dioramas and then scanned them in, so what you're seeing, they actually made in real life. And on top of this, they have a really unique combat system. It's turn-based, but then you can also walk around, and if you see enemies on the field, you can kind of like save it for later if you don't want to fight in the moment, and then do a bunch of battles in a row. It's really unique and cool. Not to mention the game is super long. When it originally released, it came out in 2 parts, and so I think a lot of people either missed it or didn't really care for it. Obviously, it being on phones was a big deal, but if this released as one singular game, it would probably be 60 to 100 hours. It's a huge game. Now, sadly, to this day, it's still stranded on Apple Arcade, so if ever they decide to release that on consoles, that would be amazing because more people need to play this excellent game. If you know my history, you know that I'm not the biggest Trails fan, but when Trails from Zero released last year, oh my gosh, it just blew me away. I think it does a lot of great things that the other arcs don't do very well. For one, you start out with your entire party at the beginning of the game, which I love. You get to know everybody way better, whether it just be one-off moments or just slowly throughout the game. That can be kind of a hindrance to other JRPGs as you slowly add party members, but here with Trails from Zero, you get everybody from the beginning and it's perfect. And also they kept the scope kind of small. You're just in Crossbell and some of the surrounding areas, so you get to know the town really well and get attached to it. And as police officers, that makes a lot of sense because you're going to want to patrol your area. So the fact that you don't go out too far, it makes you really familiar with the areas and all the different characters. Now, one thing that all Trails games do pretty well is their turn-based combat system, and Trails from Zero is no different. It's on a grid and you have to be close to certain enemies to do certain attacks. And it also builds up sort of a Limit Break-esque ability where you can do bigger attacks, and you can even team up with other characters if all of your meters are built up. Now, it can get a little tedious at times, especially as you're going in between zones or just kind of crawling around a dungeon. So if you want to speed it up, you can turn the turbo mode on just to kind of grind out those lesser enemies to really level up a lot faster. But then it's perfect for the bosses. You just turn it off and really just zero in, no pun intended, and get really into the battle and make sure you execute your strategy to perfection. Now, I don't know if this counts as a modern game since this technically came out a long time ago, but we only got it in the West last year, so I'm going to count it. And thankfully, we won't have to wait too long for its sequel and for this arc to conclude, as in 2023 we'll be getting the sequel Trails to Azure. So I'm super excited for that game. Loved Trails from Zero. And if you haven't checked this one out, definitely make sure you do. I know, a Pokemon game, right? What's wrong with me? But you know, I gotta be honest, I actually really love Pokemon. Now, I'll also be honest and say that I'm probably one of the more casual fans out there. I start the game, I just play through the story, and once I'm done, that's it. I don't hunt shinies, I don't play online, I don't play with friends. I just kind of go through the story, have a great time, and I'm done with it. Now, I didn't play Pokemon Let's Go, and I haven't played Scarlet and Violet yet, despite it having some issues. Apparently, it's still a really good game, but I really enjoyed my time with Sword and Shield. This was the first time that Pokemon went, quote, open world with some of the wild areas and stuff like that. But overall, I just loved the vibe of this game. It had a really good use of colors, and I loved that it was kind of English themed, and all the different towns and areas you would go to. It was just so much fun to explore. And of course, I had to go with Score Bunny, just a super cute design, and I loved all the different abilities you would get as you would evolve them and level them up. And I also loved the Gigantamax battles. That was kind of a really unique spin and a unique thing that they added to the game. There were different areas around the world that you could go to and you get into these raid battles. Oftentimes for me, it was probably just NPC characters or AI characters, but nonetheless, it kind of made for some fun, interesting moments. And I gotta be honest too, one of my favorite things in games like this is dressing up my characters or just being able to customize the outfit. So the fact that they went all in with this and you could really customize it to the nth degree, I had a lot of fun with that. Now, for hardcore Pokemon fans, I totally understand. You want them to evolve and be better and, you know, be more than what they are because they have the money to do it. However, for me, I don't ever go in with too high expectations. And what I played with Sword and Shield, I just loved it. It was a nice, cozy experience, not too long, and I'm looking forward to the next one. It sounds like I need to play Scarlet and Violet too. Hopefully they patch that one up, and hopefully Pokemon can do even better in the future. Now, speaking of catching monsters and fighting with them, let's talk about Monster Hunter Stories 2. This one kind of came out of nowhere for me. I'm a pretty big fan of the mainline Monster Hunter games, but I didn't play Stories as I didn't really know what to expect from it. But when I saw the trailer for 2, I was like, okay, Stories 2 looking really neat. And once I finally dove in, oh my gosh, I fell in love with this game. I love that you could hunt the monsters, catch them, and then fight alongside them as party members. That was just so cool. Like a lot of other games in this video, it has its own rock, paper, scissors-like system where each attack has its own kind of attribute to it, and you have to make sure you're doing the opposite one so you do the most damage. It was just so fun going to new areas, catching new monsters, and switching out your outfits. Again, one of the big parts of Monster Hunter is hunting the monsters and then getting their parts so you can make better equipment and better weapons. And I love that they simplified it in Stories 2, where it's your entire outfit instead of just individual pieces. So it made it simple to swap out different pieces of armor when you wanted to. And again, much like Pokemon, you could customize your armor and your character to the nth degree. So I loved messing around, customizing my character, getting all the different outfits and weapons just how I wanted. It was just so much fun. And I love that you could ride your monsters too. There were so many cool ways to explore the world, whether it be just kind of running around fast on the ground or flying. I don't know if we're ever going to get another Monster Hunter Stories, but here's hoping we do because I loved to, and it was such a fantastic game, and I hope more people play it. Now, one game I'm sure you've heard a lot about on this channel, if you're familiar with me, is Chained Echoes. Now, I was tracking it throughout the year, and I was like, okay, I knew this game was going to be special because it looked really neat, but I did not expect it to be this good. Again, like I've said before, the thing that really catches your eye is the art style. There's a lot of pixel RPGs out there, but to me, this one, there's something different about it. Something about the colors, the animation, the size of the character models. They just went one step beyond, and it looks incredible. But I think what really ties it together and makes it truly special is its combat system. The overdrive system in Chained Echoes is brilliant. You know, in a lot of turn-based RPGs, you kind of just spam the most powerful attack or your basic attack, and you're not really even thinking about it. But what Chained Echoes does, it says, hey, you know, we're going to make the combat pretty fast-paced. You have to stop and think about what you're doing so your meter doesn't get too far one way or another. You have to manage it. So you can either do attacks that reduce the meter so you can stay in that green zone and do more damage and take less damage, or, you know, if you're not careful, it goes all the way to the right and you're much more vulnerable. So throughout the game, it was really fun to keep that balanced. It wasn't just in the boss fights, it was in random encounters throughout the world. You know, we get these big AAA JRPGs, and there's obviously a lot in this video, but I love that we still get little indie games like Chained Echoes that come out of nowhere and really surprise us, and I hope we get many more like this for years to come. I absolutely adore Octopath Traveler. Again, right away, it has that HD 2D art style that it essentially invented that other games have been trying to copy now. But it doesn't just have a beautiful art style. It's got an amazing soundtrack, and there's such a variety from like upbeat battle themes to calming piano tunes. It's got such a huge variety of quality tracks. But it doesn't just have that. The thing, again, that I think really ties it together is the combat system. To me, it takes everything about modern turn-based combat and puts it together in maybe the best system I've ever seen. So one, it pulls from Bravely Default, where you can either store up turns for later or do multiple turns in a row if you really want to hammer home some damage. But then what I love is it kind of pulls from Persona in some ways, in that there are enemies that have these locks, and you have to figure out their weakness to break those locks so you can do some real damage. So this makes normal enemies actually fun to fight. There's a little bit of a puzzle element to it. Also, again, what I think really puts it over the top is the job system. What's really cool is you can acquire new jobs as you explore the world and collect new characters. And each job has its own unique set of abilities. And what's neat is as you level up, you don't just get one for like, hey, it's level 5, so you get this very specific ability. You get points, and you can spend those points how you want. So you're not limited to this structure that the game gives you. You can customize your characters how you want in just the perfect way. But then mixing and matching those job classes to create really fun combinations of abilities, that's the best. I think that just is so much freedom that a lot of JRPGs don't give you, especially turn-based JRPGs. They're always locked into one specific character does this one specific thing. So the fact that it gives you this much freedom is so cool. Now, I know the story overall wasn't the greatest. It doesn't connect in any huge way, but I loved some of the smaller character stories. Probably my two favorite were Ophelia and Primrose. I loved Ophelia because she's just so sweet and kind and wants to help out her family and wants to help out different characters that she meets through her journey. And then Primrose is kind of the opposite. She's been tortured and kind of abused, and she's wanting to get her revenge. Overall, though, this is a fantastic game, and I love that we're getting a sequel. It looks incredible, and I can't wait to play that. And if you haven't played Octopath 1, absolutely make sure you do it. Now, we couldn't do this list without Persona 5 Royal, right? I mean, it's hands down one of the best turn-based JRPGs probably of all time, definitely of the modern age. And I think what it does so well is it takes the formula that was established with Persona 3 and 4 and just cranks it up to 11. Obviously, the art style is so stylish. It looks incredible, the animation is amazing, and just let's talk about the menus. The menus are incredible. I don't think I've ever seen a game with stylish menus like Persona 5. And I think there are a lot of games today that are trying to copy it, but just not doing nearly as good of a job. It's also got an incredible soundtrack. That acid jazz just hits just right at all the different moments. Whether you're walking around in a rainy night or trying to get jazzed up for a battle or just some more quiet moment with a particular character, all the tracks in this game are incredible. But what Persona is famous for and why I really love it is its game loop. It has this really awesome balance of different gameplay things that you can do to always keep you hooked. So for example, it says, hey, go to this dungeon by this specific date, but it doesn't take you that entire time to do it. So you can say, okay, let's knock out the dungeon, then let's, hang out with some friends or do some school activity or work a part-time job. It's fun because there's always something cool and unique to do and such an awesome world and set of characters to do it with. Now, I will admit that I'm a little bit salty with Persona 5 Royal. I recently replayed it on Switch and I didn't unlock the final semester, so I missed so much story, and maybe one day I'll go back, but still I'm a little salty. But also that combat. Man, I think it's just is also nailed turn-based combat. Again, it's all about finding that weakness, following it up with another another one and doing those all-out attacks. There are so many games that get turn-based combat wrong. It can just feel so slow and boring, but with Persona 5, man, they just always knock it out of the park with even normal enemies or the boss battles. To me, there's almost no modern turn-based JRPG that can touch Persona 5 Royal, except for one. And for me, that is Dragon Quest XI Echoes of an Elusive Age. Now, why is Dragon Quest XI number one over all these other games? I think for me, it's just that sense of adventure. There are very few JRPGs that can really capture that sense of adventure and constantly going to new areas and meeting new characters and just constantly being surprised. Even from the very get-go, you're like at this little small village and your mom is saying goodbye and all your friends are saying goodbye and you're like, all right, I'm off to go do my thing now. And sure, the overall story is a little generic. You know, you're collecting MacGuffins, you're the chosen one, but all the characters in the story are just so fun and interesting. Jade has this really interesting balance of being really kind, but then also being a badass when she needs to. And then you have a character like Sylvanda, who's obviously very outgoing, very flamboyant, but then once you learn why he's doing that and he talks with his father, it's just, gosh, it's just so sweet and really interesting. And I just love this world. It was so fun to explore. I loved going to every little corner of every single town, breaking the pots, going into people's houses, finding everything I could, and I just loved existing in this world. Now, the combat system admittedly is a little simple. There's nothing really to it. It's just turn-based, you do your thing, each character has a specific role, and that's it. However, with the re-release, they did add the ability to speed up combat, so you can kind of go through that a little bit quicker, but to me, it's the entire rest of the game that really makes it number one for me. Now, I rarely have time these days to go replay games, but this is one I've been thinking of replaying for a long time, and after making this video, I might just have to do that. Thank you once again to Honkai Star Rail for sponsoring this video. To sign up for the beta, be sure to check out the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.